I know it's a little bit before the top of the hour, but I wanted to go ahead and start the stream anyways. So, as any of you may or may not know, my computer had a few issues the other week. Um, Long story short, our house is an older one, and we had some issues with the breaker box. That in turn led to us losing power to the attic for a little bit, and my computer was actually in the middle of running some programs and some updates once when that happened. So it actually ended up completely messing with my computer to the point where I actually needed to reinstall the operating system. It was a disaster, yes, Tyler. It's still a little bit of a disaster, but it was a disaster. So I have all of my game files, and I did have all of my save files. However, something went wrong when I was attempting to save the mod files. So when I reinstalled Vortex, Vortex did not have all of my mod files. Now, obviously, it takes a long time to download all of these mods. I did still have all of the integrated files, so I wouldn't have had to re-edit them in SSE Edit. I would have just had to re-download them, except for one thing. The vast majority of the mods that I used had actually gotten updates since the last time I had downloaded them. And quite a few of them were mods that really, really needed updates in order to be playable without issues. And quite a lot of those updates required you to start with a whole new playthrough. So, as a result, I decided to leave it up to you guys. I put the poll out on Twitter and asked you guys which you would prefer. Would you prefer me to go through and just download the old versions of the mods and continue with the playthrough that we were currently working on? Or did you want me to go ahead and start a new playthrough? And if you wanted me to start a new playthrough, did you want the same mods, or did you want some different mods? And the decision, it wasn't unanimous, but the pretty large majority of people wanted to see a new playthrough with different mods. So, that is kind of what we're going to be working on today. I have already been downloading a lot of the core mods that I consider essential to this playthrough. I am still going to be using Legacy of the Dragonborn as the main, all-encompassing mod, I should say. Mainly because it really gives a purpose for a lot of the other mods that I like to use. It really integrates them more into the quest. It still adds in a lot of the items and gives them a reason for being there, gives some more backstory on them, and gives you a place to put them instead of just chucking them in a chest somewhere. And there's a lot of really, really nice items that are in these mod packs that I really wanted to get a chance to show off. That being said, even during my time of re-downloading all of these mods that I consider essential, there are some new ones that I have already added to the mod list. So today, I'm going to, be taking requests as far as what types of mods you guys want to see, and I'm also going to be showing you guys how I actually install these mods, what tools I use in order to sort them, compile them, and merge them all together. So we'll see how long this stream goes. I don't really know how long it's going to go, because that all depends on how many issues we run into, how many different requests I get, any questions you guys might have, definitely feel free to ask me. That's kind of what today is about, because I have gotten a lot of questions from people asking me how how do you do this? Because this all seems really interesting, but it also seems really overwhelming, which I can definitely understand. So, to start out today, we're going to focus on where do you get mods. Now, I won't say that all of my mods come from Nexus, because they don't. There's some of them that do come from their own websites. The main ones that are examples of that are the Skyrim Script Extender, SKSE. That is hosted on its own web page, so you need to download it from there. The other major one, as far as actual mods go, instead of just mod tools, is Worm's Tooth, which is a wonderful questline mod that adds in an entirely new world area, a couple of new shouts, a whole new quest line, etc., etc. That one is also not available on the Nexus. That one you have to go to the mod author's webpage and download it from there. However, I will say that for about 99% of my mods, I go to Nexus. Now, a lot of people have probably heard of Nexus before, specifically in regards to Nexus Mod Manager. Nexus Mod Manager was Nexus developers' first attempt at making a mod installing and loading software. And it was a very good first attempt. I will give it that much. It was the first mod loader, really, of its kind, where it took a lot of the guesswork out of installing mods. Before Nexus Mod Manager, you had certain items like Rybash, that would show you whether or not your mod was installed correctly and help you compile some of them, but it in and of itself didn't really work that well as a mod loader for games like Skyrim did. It worked pretty well for, say, Morrowind, and even some Oblivion mods. In fact, if you use the huge mod More Oblivion, you actually need to load everything through Rybash, because Nexus Mod Manager and other mod managers would not be able to install it correctly for how Morrowind and Oblivion handle mods. But then games like Fallout and, I should specify Fallout 3, Fallout New Vegas, Fallout 4, Skyrim Special Edition, and a bunch of other games started coming out with these more advanced engines that had a lot more, scripting required. A lot of them require, Microsoft C++ redistributable, a whole lot of other things in order to make them run. And so Nexus, which was already a little bit of a hub for mods, realized that they could help out a lot of people by making a mod manager that would show you exactly which mods you had, allow you to enable them without having to completely delete all of your mod files, and help you kind of visually see where everything was, and work with other tools to be able to let you sort them, compile them, combine them, whatever. So it was a very good first attempt, but Nexus Mod Manager was very, very, very buggy. It had frequent crashes. It would forget your load order quite often. It would not install mods properly sometimes, depending on whether they had BSAs. Nexus Mod Manager could not handle files that were flagged as ESL, even after Skyrim Special Edition was released and allowed for you to use light flagged plugins. So it was a bit of a mess. It was a bit of a hot mess. So after a while, another mod manager came into existence as an alternative to that, and that was Mod Organizer, specifically Mod Organizer 2, because the first Mod Organizer had been made alongside with Rybash. Mod Organizer 2 was, again, a good step in the right direction. It's a great mod. I highly recommend it for anybody who maybe doesn't like using Vortex for some reason. But at the end of the day, it had made it. Well, first off, Mod Organizer 2 is wonderful for anybody who wants to have multiple, vastly different mod packs for the same game. Vortex allows you to have that to a certain extent, but not really. It allows you to have different profiles that have different mods active at any point in time, but it still stores all of the mods in the same file, so it can get a little tricky. Mod Organizer 2 worked around that by actually making a different virtual folder for each and every profile that you created. So you could have multiple different, completely different mod packs for the same game, and depending on which one you had active, it would just load the game from within a different virtual folder. However, it ran into some issues with tools such as Loot and FNIS, which is the tool that loads all of your animations into Skyrim. Where those tools are, the way that they work, it requires them to be able to see what mods you have in your mod folder, so it can overwrite and update them. Mod Organizer 2, because it has the virtual folders, doesn't let them do that. So they're completely unable to read that, and they're unable to update the files that they need to. So, again, it was a good step in the right direction. If it weren't for the FNIS issue, it would be probably my go-to, personally. But the issue with FNIS and it not being able to load those animation files, it really puts a dampener, because any time you add in a new NPC, it needs to know, hey, I have this. Or for one of my main mods, Archery Gameplay Overhaul, it needs to know that that mod is there in order to overwrite those animation files, or else your character is going to be moving in a way that is completely incompatible with the mod, and your game is going to crash. So, for a long time, those were your two options. You dealt with the bugs with Nexus Mod Manager, or you tried your luck with Mod Organizer 2 as long as you didn't have anything that edited animations. Well, then, Nexus Mod Manager was sunsetted. They actually got rid of it. You might be able to download it somewhere, but it's definitely not recommended. If you do download it, it says, hey, this is no longer supported. Please use our new mod manager, which is the one we're going to be using today, which is Vortex. Vortex is definitely the best mod manager that I have used to date. It is not without its own issues. I've run into a handful of problems with it, just as far as it, losing some connections to files at times, but it is still a far cry better from what we had to use beforehand. So the first thing you'll see is that you can manage multiple different games at the same time, and actually the number of games that it supports for mods is absolutely insane. I'm sorry, this is going to sound a bit like an advertisement for Vortex for a bit, but basically there are all of these different games that you can load mods for from within Vortex, and you can only have one active at a time, but that's just so it makes sure that it's installing things into the right spot. So, the first thing you're going to want to do if you want to get involved in Skyrim modding is you're going to want to go to Nexus Mods page. In this case, we're working with Skyrim Special Edition, so we'll go ahead and we click on that. And the first thing I would recommend that anybody do is immediately go to the Popular All-Time tab, because anything that's on the Popular All-Time tab, you're likely going to need for just about any mod you're going to need. So you need Force New Idols, Sky UI, Static Mesh Improvement, Unofficial Skyrim Special Edition patch, things like that. Those are all going to be on this first page. And that's really where you want to get your start. So, once you do that, and you install Vortex, because you can find Vortex from the mods page, I don't know if it's in here, or if you have to go somewhere else to do that. Let me just take a look here. It would help if I showed you where to go to download this. Vortex. Let's just see where that takes us. Yes. Yes, so you do download it from here. It's not under any, it's under Nexus Mods specifically. So this is where you go to download it. It installs like you would a program, because it is a program. It's not, you don't have to manually drag everything. You run the installer, and then once you've run the installer, it will try to auto-detect what games you have. If it can't find them, then you may just have to go to games and say, hey, I have this. Let's say, it couldn't find Beat Saber, for example. So you can say support is provided through an extension in this case, so you would need to download that extension. Let me see if there's a different one here. Yeah, they're all gonna say that, aren't they? Of course. Yeah. So you would have to download the extension, but once you do that... yes, the game hasn't been automatically discovered. You will have to set the folder manually. You hit continue, and then you can just navigate to wherever the game is installed and click select folder. And then once that's done, it'll appear as one of these colored options as opposed to the black and white and grayscale one. And then you just click manage to start managing that particular game. So we already have Skyrim Special Edition as our active mod, and I've already been downloading a lot of games, so I will show you two different ways that you can load these mods, because obviously some of them you'll be able to install from Vortex directly, or I should say from the Nexus directly, and some of them you will have to download externally and then load them into Vortex. So let's actually go ahead. I don't think I have downloaded this mod again. No, I haven't. You can see I last downloaded a file from this mod back in March, so I have not re-downloaded it for install for this next playthrough. So I will go ahead and say I want to download this. You go over to the Files tab to get all of your all of the files. In this case, we have a couple of different options. So I always go with Classic with all roads, and then Vivid with stone roads, just because that's my particular preference. So we will go ahead and select Mod Manager Download. And it says your file is being prepared, and you'll see I get a little pop-up here that says, hey, you're downloading this. So if I now go into here, you'll see download finished, And if I go to my mods list, you can see I actually have two in here. I have Sky UI, and then I have my quality world map. So we'll just go ahead and close that out, and I'll go ahead and download this one as well. And then I can also remove the clouds from it, which will be very nice. And so now I have all of these in here. So I can close this. So that's how you would download them directly into Vortex. They will still show up in your downloads folder. So if I go to my downloads folder, actually they may not. No, they download, sorry, that's my bad. They don't download to your downloads folder. They download directly into the Vortex mods folder, which is where Vortex manages your files. The other way that you can install mods through Vortex is if you have them saved somewhere else. So let's say you had to download one from somewhere other than the Nexus. Then you would have to go in here, wherever you saved your mods to, and you would just click and drag. So I'm actually going to do something that I wouldn't recommend doing, and that is I am going to highlight all of these, and I am going to go ahead and drag and drop those, and just let Vortex chew on that for a minute. That's probably going to take it a while, but you can see now it's importing all of these files all at once, which is exactly what I want it to do. While we're doing that, we're actually going to go ahead and make sure that our Skyrim script extender is installed properly, because that is installed differently from the rest of our mods. So the first thing you're going to want to do is you're going to want to go ahead and go to skse.silverlock.org. That is the only website where you can legitimately download the Skyrim script extender for Classic build, for Special Edition, or for VR, because yes, there are mods for Skyrim VR that I will hopefully be able to play once I have a decent VR rig, because I do own the game. So, from there, we're going to be going ahead and just downloading the 7-zip archive. I already have it downloaded, so I'm not going to download it again. Because it is a 7-zip, you will need a unzipper. So don't use, it says do not use anything from the Windows App Store. So I always use 7-zip. It does say that you can install it via Steam. I don't recommend it. I've tried it before, and it's always done some weird things. Maybe they've updated it since then, but I personally always prefer to install it manually. So once you've downloaded it and unzipped it, you'll have this folder here, which will say SKSE 64, which means it's for the 64-bit version of the game, and then it'll have the version number. So in this case, it's 2019, which you can see we're on 2019 right here. When you open that up, you'll have 2 folders and 5 files. What you'll want to do with those is you'll want to navigate to wherever your game file is. So in this case, because it's installed via Steam, I'll go into my Steam library, and you can see my Skyrim Special Edition right here. So these files you want to put directly in the Skyrim Special Edition folder. So you just copy those, paste them over. I already have it installed, so I'm going to say replace the files. And you'll see that those are now in the Skyrim Special Edition folder, should be right next to your actual game launcher. For the other ones, In this case, you can directly copy these over if you don't have anything else installed. I prefer not to. I always prefer to at least open it up to the point where I have things like this. So I can go into data, and then I have scripts. And you can see that I have all of these files. I'm going to go ahead and copy these over. I always prefer to copy files instead of folders, just on the off chance there is something else in these folders in my game file that I don't want to overwrite. Okay. And then we also have the SRC. Which is here. And again, just doing the same thing. For the SKSE64 folder, I'm not going to worry about it because that is only managed by SKSE itself. And then common. You can see there's just a bunch of files in here, so I'll just go ahead and copy those over as well. And there you go, you're all set. So now your Skyrim script extender is installed, which is the basis for a lot of the mods that you're going to be working on today. So let's take a look here. Yeah, it's still chewing on things for a minute. So I'm just going to leave that. In the meantime, I'm also going to install the first part of a mod that I actually also have. So I actually have a mod that is called SKSE Engine Fixes, and you can see these two here. So, in this case, this mod has very specific install instructions. So I'm actually going to just open another window of Nexus mods. I'm again going to select Skyrim Special Edition. Always make sure you select the game that you're working with, so that way you're only receiving search results that are for the game that you're working with. Otherwise, you may end up installing, say, a mod that is for regular Skyrim as opposed to Skyrim Special Edition. That can have some pretty bad issues. So, again, just recommend take the extra 2 seconds, click on the game you're working with. So in this case, we are looking for SKSE Engine. Yeah. So we're going to go ahead and click SSE Engine Fixes, which is an SKSE 64 plugin. And it has the install instructions on here. So you install the part 1 zip as you would any SKSE plugin. So that one we're not going to touch for right now. We're going to wait until Vortex is done importing all the other mods, and we'll deal with that one later. The preload text file is required to be in the directory if you want to use the memory manager patch. So if your mod manager warns about it, make sure it gets added. Install the part 2 by extracting it to your Skyrim SE folder. So, in this case, we have our 7-zip part 2 engine fixes here. So we're going to go ahead and use 7-zip to extract those. and it'll just go to a folder here, and you can see that we have these 3 DLLs. These are what they were talking about. So, we're going to go ahead, we're going to go back to our Steam library, apps, common, special edition, and again, they said they need to be in the same area as our game directory. So this is it right here, so right next to all of the regular SKSE stuff. We're just going to go ahead, copy, paste, and replace, because I apparently already had things with similar names. So that is now all installed. We will need to install part 1 along with the rest of the mods once the other mods are done loading. So I'm going to go ahead and close that for now, and let's check on Vortex. How's it going? It's probably a little stuck right now. I probably should have done that in batches. If it continues to be unresponsive for too long, I'll close out of it and go back in. But for right now, I'll just leave it and see if it updates itself. In the meantime, are there any other mods that anybody else wanted to look at? I don't know who all is in, but how does this already have an update? Any new magic mods? You know, that's a good question, actually. I don't think I have my normal magic mod installed, so I'll take a look at that in just a second. I just downloaded this, and I was just on this page. Oh, okay. If you have a parallax shader, they have something for Helgen. Okay, nah, I don't need that. Alright, so let's go ahead and see. You know what? Let's go ahead. We're gonna select Explore All Mods. Here's how you can help narrow your search a little bit, because, you know, you can go through the list and see if you can find any that have to do with magic, but that gets a little tedious. So, what you can do is, first off, we can say, I want to see 80 items per page instead of just 20 to minimize our clicking, because we have a little over 1,000 pages worth of mods. So we'll give that a second. You can sort by number of downloads and what order, so that way we're seeing the most downloaded first. And then if you click on this little arrow here, you can see that you can refine results. So, in this case, we want to look at anything that includes magic for gameplay and spells and enhancements. Attributes. We do not want to see anything with anime. We do not want to see adult files. You'll notice that NMM compatible is completely grayed out because Nexus Mod Manager no longer exists. We do not want extreme violence and gore. We do not want nudity. We do not want sexy or skimpy or sexualized content. We also don't want Skyrim VR. And let's get rid of translations as well, because that way we won't see the, you know, there are mods that translate other mods into Russian or French or other languages. So we don't want to see those because we're working in English for right now. So we don't care about if it uses Body Slide Outfit Studio. I do have a Body Slide Outfit Studio, mainly to help with making people look a little more realistic and then helping the new armors and clothing fit to those bodies, but that'll come in later. We don't care if it's not lore-friendly. There's a lot of them that aren't lore-friendly. We don't really care. Race menu preset, we do have race menu. Real-world issues is a little bit up in the air as far as what it actually means, so I just always leave it checked. And saved games, I guess we'll uncheck that, because that is a, hey, download this to start a save game with this particular thing. And we don't care about swearing and profanity. So we will go ahead and apply these filters. It'll probably take a hot minute. And we'll see what kind of results we get. I'm interested to see. Okay. So it looks like Arcanum has a new update. That's not the one that we usually use, though, if I'm remembering correctly. Though it is an interesting one. Ah, so it's been updated to include conjuration spells as well. So it looks like we're only missing alteration at this point. Because we have 4 of the 5, I think it is, total. Correct me if I'm wrong. And it is compatible with all other spell mods, perk overhauls, etc. So, that's good. So, why not? Let's go ahead and install this one. And, give that one a try, because that one definitely seems interesting. Oh, literally just got uploaded. And I'm downloading it normally, rather than using the mod manager download right now, because... Oh, actually, look at that. It did it. I'm impressed. So, you can see now that I have all of these mods in here. And I've got a couple of... Ah, and Vortex has an update. Of course it does. So I will dismiss all, and I will click Restart and Install. And restart only means Vortex, so... it's not going to restart my computer. NPC spell list. Oh. This is a list of spells from the mod I deem safe. Oh, okay. So that's if you wanted to add them. So I'm not going to touch that because I am not a modder. So you'll see that Vortex is still getting set up. Okay. Fenderix is a very good mod, but it touches a lot more than just magic, and it doesn't really work well with a lot of the other mods that I have for this playthrough. I would highly recommend it for anybody who doesn't want a lot of other mods, or who wants to make a mod pack that is focused around making the world in general more magical. Definitely recommend that one. Just probably won't be able to use it for this playthrough. Some of these are already things that are fixed with other mods that I have. Ah, Apocalypse. That's the mod pack I usually use. So in this case, this is more Apocalypse, which adds in 20 new experimental spells. Interesting. So I'll go ahead and download that via the mod manager, why not? And again, in this case, I want to make sure that I have the actual Apocalypse spell pack. So I'm just actually going to search Apocalypse Magic of Skyrim. Akado's Recital, yes, definitely. So we actually need the mod manager download of the standard Apocalypse. We also need the Ordinator compatibility patch, because we do have Ordinator, which is a overhaul of the perks system within Skyrim. Okay. Oh, excuse me. Better Master Spells. That's a nice one that I've used in the past. So, what it lets you do is, normally, Master level spells require both hands to cast. And when you're dual casting it like that, it holds you in place. You can't move. So what this does is it takes it from requiring both hands and holding you in place to you can use one hand or you can use both hands to supercharge it and you can still move. Because it kind of doesn't make sense that your master level spells would require, like, if you're that high level, then you're going to be able to cast this stuff relatively normally rather than needing anything like that. So we'll go ahead and we will download that as well. Reach Magic is another one that I really like, but I won't be including it in this particular playthrough. It adds in a bunch of spells that are specifically designed around the Forsworn and the kinds of magic that they would usually use, basically to give them a little bit more of a realistic spell list instead of just favoring fire spells as heavily as they do. Definitely recommend. Very nice spells, very well done. But I already have a lot in my mod pack, and adding in the few spells that it has and the specific effects that they have can cause some minor issues. So, gonna leave that one be. And as you can see, there is no shortage of mods for whatever kind of playthrough you want. Even looking at 80 of these per page, we still have 13 pages of just things that are flagged with magic for Skyrim. Which, of course, it's Skyrim, it shouldn't really be too surprising, but still. Use the Force, Skyrim. Hilarious. How many pages in am I? This is only the second page of the 80 mods per page list for... Now, I am going to ask, should I get spells that allow me to teleport? Basically, whenever you visit a settlement or town, there will be a spell book that lets you learn a spell to cast that will teleport you back to that particular city. So, Dawnstar, Falkreath, Markarth, Morthal, Riften, Solitude, Whiterun, Windhelm, and Winterhold. It is lore-friendly. It costs 300 magicka. It's from the Alteration School. It does have a casting time. You can use the alternate version, which I may do because it's a slower cast time, but also less magicka. And I can also get towns and villages and faction spells. Yes, I do like to avoid fast travel. So I think I'll go ahead and go with that. So less magicka, increased cast time. And I'll go ahead and use towns and villages and factions as well. So it lets you teleport to the different factions. Again, you still have to visit the location at least once and find the spell before you can teleport there. So it's not like you start with them, it's not like you can buy the spell anywhere and then teleport there. It's not in leveled lists. You have to go there, you then have to get the spellbook, learn it, and then you can go. Okay, we'll go ahead and use those. Ooh, mage armor rebalanced. Interesting. Nice. So, basically, the different mage armor spells in base Skyrim are a little underwhelming, to be generous. Each of them only lasts for 60 seconds, and none of them can provide an armor rating higher than 300 points, which is very, very low, all things considered, when you look at how much protection you get from standard armor. So, it's equivalent to wearing a set of light or heavy armor with only a 200 point rating. So, Yeah, very squishy. Dragonhide, which is the highest level spell that you can get in that particular line, does compensate somewhat by giving you an automatic 80% damage reduction, which is equivalent to an armor rating of 667, but it takes a full 3 seconds to cast. You're forced to stand still while casting it, so you're entirely vulnerable. It's easily interrupted, and that spell only lasts 30 seconds. Hello! Welcome, Chris. We're just going through Skyrim mods and how to install them. So it's unaffected, and Dragonhide is unaffected by Mage Armor perk. So, really, really bad. So, this mod changes them so that they are a viable alternative to light and heavy armors. So, it'll give a better bonus if wearing no armor, and each rank of the Mage Armor perk will raise it to a different level. So then with Dragonhide, you can now equip it in either hand and cast it immediately, just like the other spells in the list. Each rank of it will still work, so you can get up to 660. You don't get the automatic damage reduction, but that's because you get the equivalent armor rating. So, much better. And they're also not overpowered. We're good, how are you? Ah, I don't know if I have cutting room floor. I do have cutting room floor. Okay, good. Yeah, we're going through and reinstalling my Skyrim mod list with slightly different mods this time. Most of them are already there. We just are working through some of the finer points, and I'm showing you guys as we go how to actually install them, how to sort them, merge them, and then use SSE Edit to really merge them all together and make sure that they are all very nicely compatible. So, we're going to go ahead and we're actually going to get this Mage Armor rebalanced, as well as the practical dual cast cost. Because I can agree that Mage Armor in its base form was horrible. Definitely not worth. More staff variety. What does that do? Lack of incentive to be a mage. Clothing and weapons, you've got something like 10 robes, really only 2 since 8 are retextures of the other 2, and same with staves. Right, like, I understand the idea of the glass cannon, however, at the same time, because it takes an extra amount of effort to get your spells in the first place, I really think that certain systems kind of go out of their way to make mages as squishy as possible, because, like, they think they deserve it or something for having such powerful spells, when the reality is, between the casting time, the limits on mana, and, you know, if you're, like in Skyrim, if you're just standing there swinging your sword, unless you use power attacks, you're not using anything. You know, there's no resource that you're using up. Your health only goes down if you get hit, your stamina only goes down if you're using power attacks or if you're sprinting or something. With any sort of spells, you're insanely limited based on your amount of magicka. Either you won't be able to cast those spells at all, or you'll only be able to cast that really nice, powerful spell once, and if it doesn't kill something instantaneously, then you're kind of screwed. So it's nice to see that people are acknowledging that mages were given the short end of the stick and trying to fix that a little bit. It's still better than Oblivion, but it's still not quite there. So it creates 5 other variants of every type of staff. Each variant uses one of the other staff models from the different schools of magic, edits the leveled list so that they'll spawn on enemies, does not change unique staffs or forsworn staffs. Interesting. So let's look at the pictures here. Okay. So it just adds in some different textures. I don't know if that's quite worth it. I was hoping that it would add in, like, some different, like, staff models. Okay. Now, one thing to keep in mind is there is technically a limit to the number of mods that you can have. Skyrim Special Edition and regular Skyrim both had a mod limit of 255. Now, there's an exception to that. Skyrim Special Edition specifically has the ability to load things such as ESLs, which are light plugins. Light plugins do not count towards your overall mod list. So, for example, we've got a little over 250 mods here. However, quite a lot of these are ESL patches for bigger mods. Therefore, once we actually install them, we're not going to have a full 255 mods. So, don't really need to worry about that. Yes, I have just a few. Just a few. It's not like I have the full list over here on my desktop of a little over 300 mods. Yeah, it's a lot. It's a lot. But again, that's why we have tools that help us with that. Actually, I do need archery gameplay overhaul. Thank you. And I don't know what this is, but it's a compatibility patch, so let me see what it is. And XP32 skeletons. I don't think I have that one. I have... Oh, I do have the XP32. Okay, so I will need that, actually. So we'll go ahead and download that. Yes, I do have the Special Edition Extended. Perfect. And... archery gameplay overhaul? Okay. And then I actually need to get Arcanum and put that in there. So let me go ahead, pull this up, copy that in. There we go. Okay. So with that, I think I'm going to take a moment and actually activate and install these mods, just to give you guys an idea of how you should go about it. Now, you'll notice, did you know, you can select multiple items using Control+Click or Shift+Click, or select everything using Control-A, and then do things with all selected items at once. That's great. That is absolutely wonderful. I wouldn't recommend doing that when you have done what I do and download a whole bunch of mods and then go and install them. The reason being, everything is sorted by alphabetical, and it will install them in alphabetical order. And then it'll yell at you because you don't have everything that you need if anything has a mod requirement. So, instead, what I would recommend doing is at least installing a few basic like a few of the basic mods that you will definitely need, and then go from there. So, for example, I just installed the SKSE engine fixes. So we'll go ahead and we will make sure. So it's called Part 1 Engine Fixes. So it'll be up here because it has the parentheses around it. And to install it, you just click it. And then select Enable. It's modded by another instance of Vortex. Purge it. Because I did have some of my things left over from my old one. We are purging them. We're getting rid of them. We're saying, yes, I understand this was managed by something else. Don't care. Get rid of it. So from there, we're going to go ahead and... So I recommend installing from the base game up. So you have SKSE, which is installed outside of Vortex. Then you have anything that edits SKSE, so like the engine fixes. So that's all done. Next up would be anything that edits the base game itself without adding anything new. So the main ones that I like to start with are SkyUI, because SkyUI is required for a lot of different mods in here. So we'll go ahead and add SkyUI. We also have sort by value to weight, which is very nice. So you have that option to sort by how much something is worth divided by how much it weighs. Very helpful for inventory management. We will also install the unofficial Skyrim Special Edition patch. It looks like I have more than one of these, actually. So whenever that happens, you can go ahead and get rid of it. So you'll just go ahead and click Remove, and you make sure that Delete Archive is checked, and it'll go ahead and delete it. Since both of those were exactly the same, it doesn't really matter. We'll just go ahead and we'll click that. And make sure we click Enable. And then we'll go ahead and we'll install the XP32 skeleton. What that does is it allows you to have... It overhauls the skeleton rig of the characters, both your character, the NPCs, the animals, to make them move a little more realistically, with a little bit better physics. So that way you're not seeing animals walking strangely over uneven ground. Everything looks like it has some actual weight to it when people move. You know, their arms aren't flailing around like they weigh nothing. So it just adds in a little bit of extra realism to how they move. And in this case, we're using Race Menu, which I also need to install. So we're going to select Character Creation. No randomization of styles will be here. Randomized. Yeah, we're going to go ahead and do that. Animation variants. We don't have any of these. So we're just going to select first-person animations. We don't have either of these, so we're just going to skip that. We don't have any mounted combat, so we can skip that. We don't have that. Compatibility patches, we don't have mutilation, no enderall. There we go. And enable. And then we will actually go ahead and install race menu, because that is another one that edits the base of how everything... I accidentally copied an SKSE, so we're going to go ahead and remove that, just to make sure I don't accidentally load it. Okay, race menu. I should have race menu. Yes, I do. There it is. Okay. So what race menu does is it allows you to use a bunch of different sliders to really detailed change your character's look, which is very nice. It adds in some extra things based on what race you are. It adds in a couple of different options as far as eye colors, hair colors, things like that. It's also required by a lot of mods that add in any new eye colors, hair colors, any new hairstyles, etc., etc. So we're just going to go ahead and install that. We're going to go ahead and install the... actually, we'll wait on that. Anything that is just visual, I recommend waiting for last, because it gives you a chance to really see, you know, what all you have as far as things that replace textures, and it allows you to make sure that everything gets properly overwritten. So in this case, I'm also going to install the wider MCM menu for SkyUI, because that's another one that is an edit to the game at kind of the base level. We're also going to install the No BS AI projectile dodge, because, again, same concept. It is making an immediate change to a script. Same goes for the more HUD. So we're going to install the inventory edition, and then we're going to install the patch that says Light Master. So basically, it allows it to operate as a light plugin with a master flag. So it will act as what is called a master mod, meaning that anything that relies on it, it will be able to modify and make sure it runs. But it is loaded as a light plugin, so it doesn't count towards our load order, which is very important, because when you have as many mods as we do, you need it. So we're also going to install the load game CTD fix. There are a couple of different CTD fixes, crash to desktop fixes, that are available. That one is the one that I prefer. It seems to be by far the most stable, and the one that puts the least amount of taxing on the computer in general. So, load game CTD fix, if you're having issues even with just the base game, I would highly recommend it. What else should we install first? Oh, it looks like I don't actually have the Immersive College of Winterhold, so I'm going to make sure that I install that. Because you can't have patches for something without having the actual mod. That's not how that works. Yes, and you'll see that this is one of the ones that had an update pretty recently, where it says, you know, you need to do a bunch of extra stuff. So, and you'll notice it requires SkyUI, the unofficial patch, and SKSE. So, hence why Do they also work for game developers? It's mostly fan-made. There are a few people who work for other game developers, but most of them don't actually work for the game studios themselves. A lot of them do this in their free time, which is why part of what I wanted to do with my playthrough, and is something that I'm actually hoping to start the next time I do my playthrough, is it's not going to be a charity stream by any means. But what I'm going to try to do is host a particular mod and see if we can raise, $20 or something like that to give to the mod author of that particular mod. I'll look to see if they have, like, a Ko-Fi or a PayPal or a Patreon or something like that where people could go to donate, and I would just see if everybody could chip in, $1, $2, and just raise a little bit of money as a gift to them, because a lot of this is just done by people having fun, by very dedicated people who just genuinely enjoy this. It's hard work, it's unforgiving work. I've seen the comments that people put on some of these posts. It can get nasty. In fact, just a few months ago, actually, the mod author of Ordinator almost took down his mod because he decided to step away from modding for a little while and let everybody know that, hey, I'm not going to be making any more updates or patches to this. If anybody else wants to take over, they can. And just him saying that elicited a bunch of harassment and some threats from people. And so he took the mod down for a couple of days before somebody else reached out to him and basically, offered to take over and apologized on behalf of the community. It was actually a very very sad moment, because Ordinator is a mod. It was one of the first mods that came out for base Skyrim, and it got updated to Skyrim Special Edition very quickly. And the mod author put a lot of work, a lot of effort into this mod, and seeing people react like that simply because he said, sorry, I need to step away for a minute, was really kind of awful. Yeah, people are the worst. But like I said, that's why I was hoping to do something where I could, basically showcase a mod for, that particular playthrough, and just see if we can, like I said, nothing big, but something like, raising, $20, $30 by everybody chipping in $1 or $2, just to send over and just say, hey, thank you. I know that this isn't a lot, but it's enough to buy yourself a nice meal. It's enough to, pay for her, some of your groceries, buy yourself a few coffees, just something to try to give back, and say thank you to these people for doing the work that they do, because it's tough work, and the amount of talent in here is absolutely amazing. There's always something new being added. Even for regular Skyrim, there are mods that have been posted within the last few days. Okay, we're gonna install Cutting Room Floor next. Cutting Room Floor is one of those... Now we're starting to get into installing the mods that actually add things to the game. Cutting Room Floor is kind of on the edge of that, because it just re-adds things that were in Skyrim, and it just brings them back. So we're gonna go ahead and add that. We're gonna go ahead and install Animated Clutter. we're gonna go ahead and just install everything. And enable. Okay. So then I like to go through this based on a little bit of my own knowledge and a little bit of just how the game progresses. So the main things that you want to think of are, okay, think of how your first, think of how the game is going to load the first time that you're playing it. It's going to obviously load the actual game. So anything that affects that immediate loading you want to install first. That does not include anything that adds new content. That you'll want to leave for later. You want to focus first on just the things that help the game itself load. What happens after you do that? It loads in the menu and lets you select what you want to do. So anything that edits the menu and how the menu works, not how the menu looks, but how it works, is what you would want to do next. So we've done that. Once that happens, what are you going to do on your first playthrough of a game? You're going to make a character. So now we want to install everything that handles and edits character creation. For example, we have CBBE, which is Caliente's Beautiful Bodies Enhancer. CBBE has gotten a bit of a reputation among the modding community as being a semi-adult mod, which is kind of true. However, I personally like it for the fact that it does allow you to give characters, specifically female characters, a more realistic-looking body, and a more realistic-looking figure in general. So, first off, we are always going to have the never nude option. Apologies for the brief flash of nudity there. We will always have the underwear option. Then you have the option, we're going to keep the vanilla outfits. It has a face pack, which does overhaul their faces so that they don't all look like they're 45 years old. You also have the option of selecting what size you want. I always go with the vanilla shape with underwear. You also have the option to turn dirt into beauty marks. I personally don't like that option, but it's there if you don't want dirt overlays and if you want the option to add beauty marks. It also actually allows for the option of having different looking eyebrows, which I really like, because the standard eyebrows just don't really look that nice in my opinion. They're just kind of lines, so having the different eyebrows I think actually really helps. You also have the body morphs, which allows you to edit your character's body more, and then you have the outfits and body for that. So we'll finish that. Wait for that to install. Perfect. We'll also go to Character Creation Overhaul. Another one of my favorite mods. Now, this one has a bit of its own faux module, which is a form optimizing mod. So you'll see that you have diverse races and genders, dynamic skill progression, oblivion carry weights, and permanent birth signs. We don't want oblivion carry weights or permanent birth signs. Permanent birth signs basically means whatever sign you're born under is the standing stone that you will have for the entire gameplay. It removes the standing stones entirely. You're not allowed to change it, no ifs, ands, or buts. I personally don't like that. Oblivion carry weights, pretty self-explanatory. It sets a lot of carry weights back to Oblivion levels. Some people like that. A lot of people who played Oblivion would probably feel more comfortable with that. I personally didn't play Oblivion until after I played Skyrim, and I have other mods that also affect carry weights, so I personally don't select it. The diverse races and genders and dynamic skill progression are the two that I really like. What they do is, specifically, diverse races and genders means that depending on which race and which gender you choose, your skills are different. Base Skyrim, you load in with level 20 in every single skill, and doesn't matter what race you choose, what gender you choose, and everybody levels equally from there, which is nice, but it's also nice to have a little bit of variety and to have the race and gender you pick have a little bit of say in what you are good at. So what it does is, depending on your race and your gender, your starting stats are different, and your skill progression is a little different. So certain races will be better at hitting things as opposed to magic. Some will be kinda good at both. Some will be better at magic, some will be better at sneak, some will be better using heavy armor or light armor. And the thing is, it doesn't actually tie you down as much as you would think, because it also lets you choose your race and then say, I want the look of this race, but for my character creation, I actually want my character to use the stats of this other race. So it does allow you to do that. You're not stuck with it. But it is a nice thing to have. So I'm going to go ahead and install that with those two particular add-ons. You'll notice that it warns me that it contains multiple plugins, and I select Enable All. So what that's talking about is, if you go over to this other plugins option, you'll notice that I've got a lot of ESPs in here that aren't activated. Those are from the last, those are from the previous mod pack. But you'll notice that for the dynamic skill progression plus character creation overhaul ESP, those are two different ESPs. So those are two separate things. If we had kept those other two, those two would also be in there as their own separate ESPs. But because we didn't, those are not in here. So we're just going to go ahead, and we're actually going to look at that warning that it gave us. Plugin dependencies unfulfilled. So we're just going to dismiss all. So what is it yelling about? Okay, so it's saying that the race menu morphs needs body, slide, and outfit studio, and the skeleton requires 4's new idols. So we're going to go ahead and install those. So 4's new is all that you should have to look for. Yeah, 4's new idols. I downloaded it. Did it not make it? Ah, I do. I just haven't installed it properly. Okay, well, let's go ahead and do that. So, FNIS. And we'll go ahead and enable. And then we do still need the body slide. Whoops, it would help if I could type. So, body slide and outfit studio is the modding tool that so, for example, we have the Caliente's Beautiful Body Enhancer. What this mod does is it allows us to say, hey, you know all of these armors and clothing and anything else that I have, I want you to edit those so that they are now optimized for this new body and this new skeleton. So that way it minimizes clipping, it prevents issues where the clothes won't appear at all. Definitely a required mod if you are using any sort of body replacer, or if you are using anything that adds in new armors. Even if you are not using a new body, if you have something that does pull in new armors, it's usually recommended that you get this and run it just to make sure. Because I have run into cases where it wasn't optimized for the base body for some reason, and it was a problem. So we're going to go ahead and download that. And we're just going to go ahead and click install immediately on it, and enable. And then we can click check again once it's done deploying. And you'll see that it goes to no notifications, because we went ahead and we resolved the issues that it was having with those two. Perfect. Okay, so we're still on things that would be loaded when you're loading up character creation. So we're also going to install the KS hairdos. I actually have two different hairdo mods. One of them is a standard hairdos mod. The other one, which is made by the same maker, is actually a physics-enabled hair mod. It's actually the first one that I've seen, and it's very interesting, and I wanted to check it out because having... it's one of those things that is a little bit immersion breaking for me, is if you have a character that has long hair, and that hair just is not affected by anything that they're doing, it distracts me because it just doesn't look right. So what this does is it actually adds in physics to certain hairdos, which is very impressive, and I want to check it out. But for that, we will also need the... Where is it? Might be somewhere else. We're still waiting for it to install the regular KS hairdos, because it adds in several hundred new hairdos, if I'm remembering correctly. It's a lot. Also, if you're ever trying to find a mod in your list to enable it or disable it, searching by the mod name is definitely a way to go. We'll go ahead and enable that. We will need the HDT SMP, which is the physics mod. And then we'll go ahead and install the KS hairdos with the physics. And then there's actually two other mods that I have that also edit the hairdos, called Salt and Wind. Sure. We'll go ahead and add those in. So what Salt and Wind does is The KS hairdos are very nice, but they're very shiny. They look very plastic, very clean. So what Salt and Wind does is it takes them and kind of retextures them a little bit to look like standard Skyrim hair would. A little bit more dull, a little bit more like standard realistic hair. Um, Again, called Salt and Wind because you're in Skyrim. People's hair isn't going to look like it just popped out of the salon. It's going to look like, they're people living in the wilderness, even if they have a fancy braid in their hair. Okay, and now you'll notice that it says there are unresolved file conflicts. You're going to see that a lot. It's not as dire as it sounds. So all it's saying is, hey, we have these two files that are trying to do the same thing. What do you want to do? In this case, you'll click Show. And so in this case, we have the retexture, and it's asking where do you want to put that in regards to this. So we're going to say we're going to load KS hairdos before the Salt and Wind retexture. In each case, for the regular and the SMP. That way, the retexture will overwrite the file and display properly. And then you just click Save. And hit Deploy to make sure that it does overwrite that. And that's all you have to do. And again, you're going to see that multiple times as you're installing these, and you may have to redo it a couple of times depending, but it's one of the things that really makes Vortex the easiest way to install mods, is because it lets you make those rules of this is exactly when you should load this and which files should be overwritten by which other mod files. So, with that, we're now going to go to weapons, armor, clothing, and clutter fixes, because that one is another one that actually gets loaded fairly early in the character creation process, because you do start with clothes. So we'll go ahead and we'll install that, and we've got some really nice textures for that as well, so we'll install those. Now, the reason I know I said you want to wait on textures until later. These are exceptions. So in this case, we have weapons, armor, clothing, and clutter fixes, which is a mod that is required by a lot of other mods because it is considered a bug fix mod. Because they have very nice 4K textures, I did want the textures, but if there's another mod that I have that then again changes that texture, I want to make sure that the other mod overwrites weapons, armor, and clothing clutter fixes. So I'm going to install the textures at the same time as I install the regular mod, and that way anything else that wants to overwrite it later, such as, say, SMIM, then it can go ahead and overwrite that as well. A little bit of a preference on my part, but I did just want to clarify that since I had said earlier that you want to save textures for last. In this case, I'm changing that just for this particular thing. And again, you'll notice it's yelling because the textures are overwriting the main file, so it'll actually suggest it to you sometimes if it can tell, like, hey, I know that this is just textures, you'll probably want to make it load after the base. So we'll go ahead and do that, and click Deploy. I noticed I have another duplicate here, so I'm going to go ahead and remove that. Okay. and I'm just gonna take one more look through here and see if there's anything else I can think of that would fall into this category. We are gonna want the race compatibility all-in-one installer. I don't think I have Moonlight Tales, so I will need to install that. I do have the unofficial Skyrim Special Edition patch, and I'm going to be installing Better Vampires. And then okay, so we're gonna go ahead and finish that. All that race compatibility does is it makes it so that racial modifiers for vampires are correctly applied to certain races. There were some issues with that, apparently. So, while we're waiting on that, we are going to install Better Vampires. I know, more mods. Better Vampires is another one that I really like. It makes playing as a vampire a bit more of a, I don't want to say a challenge, but a bit more of a unique experience than it is in standard Skyrim. So we'll go ahead and we'll install that. And I'm also going to get Moonlight Tales for the same reason. So, Moonlight Tales is to werewolves what Better Vampires is to vampires. It gives you many more options for what you can do as a werewolf. So we're going to make sure that we have the base game. Yes. And we'll also add some extra skins because there are a number of different were creatures. Interesting. So let's take a look. Okay. Interesting. I think I'll go ahead and download that. Okay, so we have that. And then we're also going to make sure that we have the option to edit it in the MCM, which is the Mod Control Manager. Alright. And we'll go ahead and just install all and make sure we enable Better Vampires. and then you can click Enable All. And it's as easy as that. Alright. While we're going through that, we're also going to install Ordinator, because it is one of the things that does get loaded when you are starting out, because it determines your skills. We'll also make sure that we add in the enchantment tweaks as well. I'm just going to go all the way to the top and just go on through. We're going to make sure we install our world map. Because again, that gets loaded with your UI, and you want to make sure that it gets loaded correctly. So again, you'll notice it's yelling at you saying, hey, how do you want these to load? And it's yelling about dependencies not being fulfilled. Oh, it's saying that those two are incompatible. Okay. Ah, I see. So in this case, I did an oopsie. I thought that I needed this in order to install this, but I don't. It's pretty simple to fix. The first thing you want to do is you want to set it to disabled. You always want to disable it first. And then you can click remove. You make sure you select delete archive so that it actually deletes the file as well and doesn't sit there taking up space. And you click remove. And there you go. All done. We're also going to install Andromeda. Andromeda is a mod that adds in some better functionality to the standing stones. You are assigned a standing stone during your character creation because you choose which star sign you were born under. We'll also make sure we do the armor and clothing extension, which adds in more slots to the skeleton to put items on, which is required for some of the extra items that we get. We'll also install anything that edits your character's movements, such as archery gameplay overhaul, because those are loaded when your character is loaded. And you'll see it's already yelling, because FNIS behavior is being overwritten by archery gameplay. So, we'll just make sure that those are loaded, and FNIS does have a way to fix that. Excuse me. Alright. Do I have... I should have Live Another Life. That's the other main one that I want to make sure I load before we go on to anything else here. I do not. Oh, is it labeled alternate start? That might be why. No, I don't have either. Well, shame on me. Okay. Alternate start is something that I would highly recommend for anybody who isn't playing Skyrim for the first time. Anybody who's playing it for the first time, go through the cutscene, just deal with it for once. I know everybody's seen it in the memes, but it's really nice. If you want it to be a little bit different than what you are used to and want a little bit of a makeover, there is a Starting Scene Redone mod that I would highly recommend because it adds in a little bit more explanation and lore to the whole thing. But I would definitely recommend still going through that or vanilla start option at least once. But once you're tired of that, Live Another Life allows you to start in a variety of situations that are different than the standard Helgen one. It's also a very nice way to run around a little bit and enjoy Skyrim before dragons start trying to, bite your head off. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to make sure we install that. Yes, and the one that adds more options. So I will actually... so there's alternate start. And I forget the name of the other one. Not Skyrim Unbound. I wouldn't use that one personally. It's a very nice mod, but it conflicts with a lot of others. You can't use this one. Well, you can use the Guildmaster start. I'm not going to, personally. Realm of Lorkhan Freeform Alternate Start is another nice one. It lets you have a lot more control over how you start and where you start. Oh, I should get that one, actually, because People Are Strangers is a nice little, quality of life mod. Let me just look for alternate. Because I remember the one that you're referring to, Tyler. I just don't remember what it was called. Obviously, there are ones that work with other, mods, like the People of Skyrim or Bruma. We don't have either of those, so we're not going to use that one. And some of them are obviously designed to start you further along in the main quest. I personally don't like those. I like going through the quests at my own pace. I'm wondering if that one was removed for some reason. Possibly. This one is for, if you want to play as not the Dragonborn, which is very interesting. Oh, here we go. Classic classes and birth signs. I don't think I have that one. Yeah, no, I have the other one. Okay. Interesting. Again, there are ones that are for if you have a specific mod that adds in a location, you can have an option to start there, which is nice. But I don't know if I have these ones. Interesting. I'm not going to install that one, though. I do need this one, though. So, People Are Strangers basically makes it so that you don't automatically know who people are until you actually talk to them. It's a little bit... Oh, I already have it. Never mind. I'll install alternate start. And then I should have that one as well. So all it does is it makes it so that their name doesn't show up. It instead shows, like, Argonian or whatever their race is until you speak to them, and then it'll show what their name is. A little odd if you have subtitles on, because the subtitle will say who's talking, but still, it's still nice. Oh, I'm also going to make sure I have the different perk points options for Ordinator. Okay, and from here is where you can start to install anything that adds scripting to the game. You want to install those before you add in things like new places or location overhauls, just because, again, those will be loaded before anything else. So in this case, we're going to go ahead and we're going to start with all books have perks. And some of them will cross over into each category. For example, Amulets of Skyrim adds in both new items as well as new scripts. I would install those during the new scripts option, simply because later on, if you're installing something that adds textures, that way it'll be overwritten by the new, nicer textures. This is also where we'll install things like Apocalypse, Spell Pack, as well as any compatibility mods that are needed for that. And again, I know that this part isn't exactly the most, enthusing of spots, but it is required, for any playthrough, so going through it with you and, showing you any issues that could come up, I think is probably the best way for me to just make sure that anything that, you know, can go wrong will go wrong, and I'll be able to show you how to fix it. make sure we do. Wait a minute, I have 2 different things for complete alchemy and cooking overhaul. Which one do I need? I don't know which of these. Oh, that's complete crafting overhaul. I'm reading that entirely wrong. Never mind. We'll still install both of those right now. We'll make sure we install that compatibility patch. Oop. Yes, of course it's yelling, so we'll just make sure that this loads after the skeleton and make sure that that gets applied. Okay. Make sure that we install the DLL upgrade. Is it going to yell at us? Yes. So again, for a DLL update, you just make sure it gets loaded after the main file. Ooh, do I not have the Ethereum armor? Probably not. Nope. Okay, we'll go ahead and deploy those. Okay. And you also do have the downloads manager over here, so you can see your active downloads, you can see all of the different things that we've downloaded and uploaded to it. And I'm going to enable that simply because we also have a compatibility patch for the clothing and clutter overhaul. Alright. What's it yelling about? Requires the tools of Kagrenak. Yes, let's make sure we install that then. All the way down the list. The Tools of Kagrenac. Install. Enable. And make sure we click check again. Requires high poly head. Interesting. One moment, please. Alright. Sure, why not? Let's go ahead and do that. One moment. This one is one that requires you to go to a different site. Yes. All right. I want to make sure that I have the most recent version of Special Edition. Perfect. Save. And I am currently not showing those, simply because there are some screenshots that are considered not safe for work. I already had a couple of, issues with that when I was installing the Caliente's body enhancer, and I don't want to show any more unnecessary, not safe for work stuff. So I will bring everything back down in just a moment. And am I going a little overboard on these? Maybe. Do I care? No. That's part of the fun of modding is... you find different... you find different mods each time you go through and start a new playthrough. I'll say before In that case, I'll go with the option that's recommended. Check again. I have the tools of Kagranak, though. So why are you yelling? Tools. Do I not? Tools. Ah, I see. Okay. Check again. And it's still looking for... Ah, yes, because I didn't actually install that one yet. I had to download it. To... here. There we go. Copy in. And we'll go ahead and install that. So we'll make sure that we have Special Edition, and we have different options here. So we do have the expressive face gen, as well as the animations. Oh, and we can also get some high poly hair. Ah, and we'll make sure that we do the face gen in the creation kit as well, because that'll save us a lot of time later. Face gen and modding is some of the most complicated things that we're gonna have to deal with. It is a pain and a half. Alright, we're also going to install enhanced lights and anything to do with lighting in this round. It's something that is loaded pretty early, so you want to make sure that you load it along with any scripts. And of course, we will need to install SMIM. We don't have any edits to player homes at this point. And then we have the option... Ooh. I really like that new flame texture for the torches. So we'll go ahead and select that. Yep, and it's yelling about something because it's editing the torches and animated clutter. Actually, I can see... Oh no, it's editing the Skyforge. Okay, yeah, so we're going to have animated clutter load after that. And we'll make sure to install the fixes for that as well. I think we're using an E and B. If not, I can always go back and disable that later. Yep, and make sure that the fixes get loaded after the main file. And deploy. Perfect. We're going to install General Stores. General Stores adds in unified storage between all of the vanilla player houses, as well as a bunch of mod added houses, but it's also required as a base mod for a number of other mods that need it in order to draw on it. So even if we don't have that, even if we don't actually want or use the general stores, it's required by a couple of other things. So we do need to install it. Oh, excuse me. Anything that's labeled hotfixes, I usually save till last, because we will just apply those towards the end, along with textures. We'll install the Khajiit Merchants Buy Stolen Items script, because again, little scripts like that are always a good thing to put in here. We'll install more Apocalypse. More perk points. That goes here. We'll install the race option. Real names, which gives actual names to a bunch of other NPCs dynamically based on their race and a couple of other things. Okay. Go ahead and we'll install that as well. And the store name utility, because that'll definitely be required. Okay. Winter Sun. Faiths of Skyrim. Another one that I highly recommend. It adds in a better, religion system, so that you worshipping and following certain Aedra or Daedra actually has an impact on your playthrough, rather than just being, relatively inconsequential. Okay. So now that all of that is pretty much installed, now we'll move on to a couple of the bigger items. This is where you want to install a lot of your overhauls and a lot of your major mods. So, for example, our Legacy of the Dragonborn will go in here. We're actually going to start with things like JK Skyrim all-in-one, things that are making major edits to the world. And keep in mind that you want to wait on your patches as well. You don't want to install your patches until you're done installing everything else. We're going to close out of that because I actually didn't have everything I needed for that. We're going to make sure we have better dynamic snow. Install that is designed for vanilla textures. We'll go with that one. It seems to be the one that has the... So none. Sure. Do we want the snow on the glaciers or no? It's showing you with snow, without snow. Because I'm not 100% sure which I like. I'm leaning towards no snow, but... yeah, I think I'll go with no. Yeah. Alright, we'll go ahead and install that. We also have that I will throw in first. Better Telmithrin. I think... oh, I'm gonna need those both. Enable. And this update. Okay. Unresolved file conflicts. Of course there were. So we want the update to be loaded after. Save. And deploy. We'll install Books of Skyrim. Now again, we're installing things that are major edits, but not things that are just new textures. So like this HQ Mines, we're not going to install that quite yet, because that's just a retexture. We are going to install Civil War Aftermath, because that adds in more things to the world. What am I missing here? I have Books of Skyrim. Oh, no, I don't quite yet, because I haven't installed Legacy of the Dragonborn, which has Books of Skyrim. So I'm actually going to do that quickly. Legacy of the Dragonborn. Enable. And check again. Is it still going to yell at me? Probably. Okay, I'll have to go and see if I need to fix that later, but for right now, I'm actually going to leave it. Dawn of Skyrim Director's Cut. Another thing that adds a whole bunch to the world. This should be something different. Ah, yep. And this is where it gets a little bit confusing, because some of them are not named quite right. So like this clockwork and this clockwork, this one is actually a mod that modifies this, which is part of why it's yelling. It's still yelling about... Yeah, I know about that. But that's why we have a patch. So I actually need Blowing in the Wind first. Where is that? I probably have to download that. Of course I do. Basically just adds physics to the entirety of the signs and lanterns that are hanging anywhere so that they actually blow when it's windy. So we have Skyrim Special Edition. We're using the SMIM signs. We're just gonna go with medium. We'll mix up the lanterns. And we'll go ahead and we'll use heavy, just... and of course it does have a bunch of compatibility patches that we're going to have to install some of them ourselves because we don't have all of them actually installed quite yet, so. But that's fine. And then once we do that, now we should be able to... We'll first install Falskar. And then do JK Skyrim, Dawn of Skyrim, Blowing in the Wind. More, show, load before this, save. Deploy. Hello, I'm good, how are you? We're actually going through and rebuilding our mod pack because my computer took a dump last week, and, yeah, we're gonna have to start a new playthrough, unfortunately. But the good news is, you guys get to help me pick which mods we have. So right now, we are still working on installing it, but it is a work in progress, as it always is. All right. Yeah, there were some issues with our electric, actually. The breaker box had some issues, and we lost power to the attic. The computer, at least my computer, was still on when that happened, and as anybody can tell you, just suddenly shutting down a computer by cutting power like that is a great way to end up with some major issues, and in my case, I ended up needing to reinstall my operating system. So, it's been a fun week. So we're currently rebuilding everything. But the good news is it allows us to tweak our mod pack a little bit and get some other things working here. Now, why is it yelling about not having Dawn of Skyrim? Because I should have that. Yes, it has been a fun week. Okay. So I need the update. Enable more. Show before save. Make sure we deploy. Check again. Still saying it's not compatible. Still saying it can't find it, which I don't blame it. It's not there, but... That's very interesting. Do I need this version? I might. Let me try that. And this is where modding gets fun, because that should work, but it's not. So let's go ahead and we'll remove this one and delete the archive. And we just installed this one, so we'll copy that one in, and we'll install this one. And yes, I know that that whole thing is very confusing, but it's because... because I installed the wrong thing. That's why. Whoops. Okay. Well, let me remove this one. Okay, so it's not yelling about that anymore, but it's still saying it's incompatible. Which... oh, do I need to install this first? Will that fix it? I hope so. Okay, so that fixed that at least. But it's still saying incompatible. Interesting. Let's see what the interwebs have to say about that. Alright, well, at this point, I'm just going to opt to ignore that. Let's see if we can edit it with settings. Let's just say never show that again. These ones I'm still working on, but we'll get to those in a second. So, we're going to stop filtering these. We'll install Dawnguard Arsenal. We will install Enhanced Solitude, because I finally found a mod that enhances Solitude and the docks, while also being compatible with JK's and Dawn of Skyrim. So, very happy about that. So just as a reminder for everyone here, we are taking requests for certain mods. So if you had a mod or a type of mod that you wanted to see, let me know, and I can either see if we have it already in the mod list, or I can go ahead and find one, and we can go ahead and throw that into the mix. Because while we do have a lot of mods, I do want to hear, any ideas that you guys have as far as what I should work with. Okay, so while you're in here, if it doesn't give you an option of suggested, you always want to look at where everything would be and what it would do. So for example, blowing in the wind takes signs and makes it so that they move with the weather. Enhanced Solitude has a bunch of signs that probably wouldn't move if you didn't load this after Enhanced Solitude. So you just want to go ahead and make sure that that whatever is doing the updating is loaded after the thing that would need to be updated. So similarly, we're going to load it before the blowing in the wind patch, because the patch always needs to go after blowing in the wind. And we will load it before the enhanced lighting and FX as well. Oh, actually no, we're going to load that after enhanced lighting and FX, because you'll notice that the things that it's updating are meshes for architecture. So we'll load that after. And that all should be good. Yeah, you'll notice that these are lanterns, so blowing in the wind would want to be loaded after that. And we'll just hit save and deploy. Yeah, and again, it's just going to yell a little bit. So, Better Solitude Docks, we're going to load after this. Save. Deploy. Okay, save. Okay, good. It's still only yelling about those. That's fine. We'll make sure we install Falscar because that one is saying some mods are redundant. I'll leave that. It's better to have a redundant mod than to just disable it and risk it breaking something. We'll install Helgen Reborn, a mod that we didn't get to in our last playthrough. Immersive College of Winterhold. We'll make sure we have the loose face gen data. We have enhanced lights and FX. Better dynamic snow, ordinator. We do have project optimization at some point. Don't think we have any of those, so finish. Yeah, and enhanced lights and FX is going to yell. Okay. Immersive Fort Dawnguard. Enhanced lights and FX. We'll make sure we get the face gen data. Optimization, Dawnguard Arsenal. Don't have immersive patrols. We do have the clothing and clutter fixes. Patch for palaces and castles, Legacy of the Dragonborn. We do not have way shrines, though, so we will not install that one. Immersive patrols. And these are all patches, so we're gonna wait on those. Canaric's recruitments. We're gonna wait on Lanterns of Skyrim as well, because that one technically acts as an overwrite to any other locations that we install. Palaces and Castles Enhanced is another one that I absolutely love. It's always weird going back and trying to play through Skyrim without some of these, because especially for the palaces and castles, they make it look so natural that it feels weird going back to the other ones. The other ones almost look like they should be the ones that aren't standard, if that makes sense at all. Project AHO is another quest mod that I really like. Realistic boat bobbing, because Skyrim is all about the details when it comes to mods. Oh, that is not what I wanted to install, but it's fine. Ah, Realistic Water 2. Relationship Dialogue Overhaul is a really nice one that adds in a bunch of new voiced lines to various NPCs. And for anybody who joined late, if you have any questions about how we got here in the modding process, let me know, and I'll be more than happy to go back and cover something and make sure that you know where we're at and what we're doing. I don't know how much experience anybody has with Skyrim modding, so... Okay, good. Don't know what's different about those, but... Oh. I shouldn't have installed that one. So I'm going to uninstall it. Because the other one is the updated one, the 1.2 versus the 1.1.3. Okay. Okay. Ah, yelling about a little bit more, but that's fine. And again, I apologize that this is a little bit lackluster, but This is kind of the next step in the process that you do have to go through. So and we are coming up on the end of our time here, so if anybody does have any other questions, please go ahead and ask. If I can't answer it in the amount of time that we have left, I will try to message you or send you something to answer your question. So yes, we want to enable all of those plugins. Go with red details. There we go. Okay. And that about does it for today. Like I said, I do apologize for how much this was kind of an information overload and how much time we just spent here uh, sitting and installing these mods, but I wanted to give you guys a little bit of insight as to what actually goes into making these mod packs. So I thank you guys for joining me. If you do have any questions, feel free to message me either on our Discord, or you can DM me on Twitter at AlexTheRainbug. You can find the stream of this on Twitch, obviously, and also on my YouTube channel, which is also Rainbug Collective. And I am going to leave it at that. So thank you guys again for joining me. We will be continuing this next week when I show you guys how to go in and kind of start to merge these mods and how to edit them in SSE Edit so that they all work together nicely. So if you want to see more of that, then don't forget to join us next week. Thank you again. Have a good